Excellent, and welcome to those that are watching our recording as well. Thank you so much for joining. My name's Jessica. I'm joined by Deb and Bec, and we're from the Flying Thermingos team here in South Australia. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining live and also watching back the replay. I can't wait to show and share some tips with the TM6 Slow Cook, because TM6, as you all know, came out about two or so years ago, and it came with slow cook function. Now, with the Thermomix, we were so used to fast cooking, and slow cooking was a bit of a new concept for us in Thermomix land. So what we're doing right now, 2 years later, we're doing our first class for our team. So there hasn't been many slow cook classes, and probably for obvious reasons, because you can't do the whole recipe in a class, obviously. So we're going to show you bits and pieces of that. And as I mentioned before, and I'll say it again for the recording, but Deb's going to be showing us how to adapt and put together a slow cook meal and give you some more confidence to create your own and adapt them. And Bec is going to be giving us some information on how to save time for busy families. And she's going to introduce us to the concept of dump bags. Some of you might have heard that term before, unless Bec has coined the term, but I think it exists in the slow cook community. Yep. And myself, I'm going to be showing some vegetarian options for the slow cook. So I can't wait to show you what we've been creating. And what we might do is we'll make a start. We'll jump over to Deb's kitchen. But before I hand over, I'd like to say that we were having a little chat before when we were coming up with our class, and we were talking about what's the point of slow cooking in a fast machine like a Thermomix? Like, what are the benefits? Why would you bother slow cooking in a Thermomix? Or at all, because I've had my Thermomix for so long, I actually don't usually do slow cooking. I haven't for a decade. So I'm now experimenting with my Thermomix and seeing how it can help me. And some of the things that we came up with, and Deb and Bec are much more familiar with slow cooking than I am, but we came up with things like slow cooking is great because it will give you a beautiful flavour. So the tenderising the meat. You can use cheaper cuts for your meats as well. The depth of flavour can really grow over the time. It's convenient. So you can chuck everything in and off you go for the day and let it slow cook. I'm sure Deb will share some more reasons as to why you will benefit from slow cooking, and she'll also show you how you can use your Thermomix to enhance the flavour, save time. So obviously you've got your Thermomix, you can chop your garlic and your onions and your different flavours. You can chop your veggies as well. You can then use the high heat function built into the TM6 to brown off your onions and your meats and things like that. Deb's going to be sharing some info about that. So that's a real benefit there, all in one pot, where you can do some chopping and some browning before you set it going for the slow cook. So that's some of the reasons why we are wanting to explore more how the Thermomix can help us with slow cook. So hopefully you guys learned some great tips tonight and give slow cooking a go in your Thermomix this winter as we get into the cooler weather. I will pass over now to you, Deb, and you can enlighten us further.
Hi everyone, my name is Deb, and I'm located in Barossa, for those that didn't catch that at the commencement of the recording. It was my idea to do this class. Personally, I haven't seen any specialty classes highlighting the slow cooker mode. And I feel it's one that, especially now we're coming into the cooler months, autumn and into winter, and we're going into stews, casseroles. A lot of people often, and given we're close to Mother's Day, sometimes people are thinking, oh, I've got to go and buy a slow cooker. And we're trying to show to you, you don't need to if you have a TM6. You can actually already do it all in your TM6. But also there is obviously collections. You've already utilised your cookie dough. You'll see some collections, and there is a few recipes on slow cooking, but we've all got our family favourites. And we've also got other cookbooks that we might have used in the past. And just, I really wanted to emphasise helping people be brave enough to be able to start learning to adapt their own recipes in the Thermomix. And we really wanted to showcase the TM6, quite frankly, because, you know, this is the one that you don't need to keep going back and resetting the time. You can set it for up to the 8 hours. It, like Jess said, it's got the inbuilt high temp setting as well. Now, that little bell timing at the moment, I'm actually going to get that. That's my little bit of surprise for everyone. It's a bit of an addition. I've actually, for 3 hours, have actually made a rice pudding. So I've actually slow cooked that. Now, the benefit of slow cooking that is obviously if you've got digestive issues, and this is another benefit, is breaking down the meat, the proteins in that, and the enzymes. It will help you be able to digest, especially if you have a little bit of sensitivity digesting proteins. So that's a reason why you want to do slow cooking in that. So I'm going to get, and I thought, because we're doing savoury, I thought, hey, I'm going to do the sweet and we'll do the rice pudding. And today I made up some stewed rhubarb and some lemon curd, and I'm going to actually stir that through to make it a little bit fancy.
Yep.
Yeah. Now, don't worry.
No worries, darling. Not at all. That's fine.
Now, mine looks a bit brown because...
okay. So, yeah, because she had a little bit of a cough tonight, but I thought her cough was actually a lot better than it has been.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I forgot to get the lemon curd out the fridge. So if anyone's made lemon curd, this is another way to use it up rather than just doing lemon tarts. I always like to show people different ways to utilise things that they may already be making at this time. And it's same with the stewed rhubarb, rather than just making crumble with it. It's good for in oats, so you could do your oats overnight in the slow cooker. But I've made a rice pudding instead. And the reason I like to do it for so long is you don't get that grainy consistency or texture. And when you've got kids, sometimes texture is a really important factor. So I will just put my other one's timed down. Look at that. See, my two favourite ingredients. I'm just going to bring that down so you can see. Two favourite ingredients are the lemon curd and rhubarb. I don't know if anyone else likes, and I'm just going to just stir that through. And then I would probably put some toasted hazelnuts on top as a bit of a garnish. But it was nice that I didn't have to worry about that on the stovetop. I'd been cooking it, we just finished dinner. So later on, after my cook, all my kiddies will come out and have some dessert, and it will leave enough time in between. But I wanted to just show, I guess that's the benefits of when I've got my two machines, that I sometimes like to do one dinner for now and then do a slow cook in my other machine. So then I've already got, dinner sorted for the next evening.
So Deb, that's one of my favourite recipes as well. That combo actually, delicious.
Oh, really?
I was wondering, did you add any extra liquid to adapt that particular recipe?
No.
Or
no.
less liquid? Less or more, or just the same?
Liquid. I literally, because sometimes when I'm converting a recipe, and this is what I will talk about, is I like to look at other slow cook recipes as far as ratios are concerned, if you were traditionally doing a slow cook, because this rice pudding recipe isn't one that's in Cookie Dough. It's literally, I've just been fortunate that I can set the manual setting on the slow cooker mode and set it for the 3 hours, which is what the recommended one was. And I just basically converted. But if you don't have a recipe, you could easily just, I don't think it would be a problem following the one on Cookie Dough. So there's one, I did 200 grams of rice, and it said 1.2 litres of milk. And I'm thinking, well, I've got a litre here. I'm not going to go and open up another litre just for the 200. So if you like it really more liquidy, then by all means, but I didn't have any problems with the texture or the consistency for that. But before we get into the actual cooking, what we're going to cook tonight, I was deliberating a few different recipes, what I wanted to make, but I really wanted to highlight a protein that we all use most of the time. So this has been adapted from using, and you can use drumsticks in this recipe, but I have just got your common chicken thighs instead, because it's something that we buy often more than on the bone. And especially if you've got a larger family, you're wanting to increase the meat, definitely do the thighs instead. So how I came about doing this, I saw this recipe online and I thought I really like the sound of that, but it's this is the thing, a lot of recipes are built on the same foundations, with the sauteing, with the adding the vegetables, with the liquid, and they might, the liquid might be broth, it might be wine, it might be, like if it's Asian, you've got, your Chinese cooking wine or your soy, etc. So when you're going into any recipe, you can basically go in, if you're not familiar with adapting, and do the protein that you want to do within the slow cook function, and just swap out the ingredients in that. Now, we've made for you, and you will get this when the recording's sent, I've actually created, Jess, are you able to put up just for a minute I'm actually just looking for that now. Yep, I'll show that in a sec. Yeah. Okay. So I've made a PDF, which is an amazing cheat sheet. So I do hope you like it as much as I do. I'm definitely going to laminate mine and have it as a point of reference, and it will make it really, really simple for you to be able to start knowing what cuts of meat to use, and then cooking. So you'll see must-dos. Now the must-dos are the TM6 requirements. So the maximum meat that you can actually put in is 800 on there, and then it says with your own adapted recipes, you need to put vinegar or wine or tomato, any kind of acid, if you're going to do more than a 4-hour cook. That's just for the safety of your Thermomix bowl, that you need to incorporate that. So whether it's apple cider vinegar, white wine, vinegar, wine, your tomatoes. And just if you don't already know this, and I know some people don't often work with legumes, you have to pre-cook or use pre-cooked legumes. You can't think because you're going to do a 5-hour cook, you can just put in your legumes or your lentils, whatever, as is, because of the toxins, they have to have that taken off by the soaking method. Otherwise, it can be quite harmful to your stomach. And then the other one is obviously a very familiar one is don't go over the 2.2 litres. So then we've got like obviously the cooking time. So I've kind of broke it down into your protein or the legumes and lentils. Obviously you could do seafood and that. This is just as much as I could personally fit on the page. But, you know, I've got different cuts of meat, how the recommended time to cook is. And then if you're not too familiar about the different types of cut and what meat to use for what, I've done that as well. And I think that's really important because then depending on your affordability or what you're cooking, you will know straight away where to go and what to look for that. So you can flick that off now, Jess. Okay, so what I've decided to do is make like a chicken and mushroom and leek casserole. And there wasn't one that was in the slow cooker. However, I put into my book week this slow cook creamy turkey stew because technically turkey and chicken are generally white meats and take the same time to cook. So I know that if I'm going to do this special slow cooked one, that it's going to be the same cooking time. And what's really good about this particular recipe is it's kind of almost similar to the one that I'm doing. So if you've got honey mustard chicken, if you've got chicken Diane, if you've got, I'm trying to think of some other creamy chicken dishes. Sorry, my screen's wet, so I'm going to just try it. And go back. Okay. It's not liking me today. Too much cooking. We're not cooking lamb today. Cooking chicken. My chicken. Okay. So literally, as Jess said, we're lucky that this one has already got the high temperature setting inside this cook. So that's a reason why you might want to get or already existing slow cook recipe on the protein and just adapt it within the recipe itself for the length of time. Alternatively, if I was to do this manual, I would literally go to my my recipes and go into my created collections, and then I've actually made, I'm trying to find it, slow cook essentials. So I've made a whole collection. I'm trying to find it now. Just had it.
I'll bring that up on the big screen so everyone can see it a bit better.
Yeah, okay, great, thanks. Okay, so what I've done is I've put in your browning either beef or chicken. So you could use the lamb in that. If you use pork a lot, there is a browning pork one as well. Now, Jess, how do you say that bottom one where you want to do carrot, celery and onion all together?
Who knows? It's a French word. Moirepoix.
Yes. Okay, so what I've also done in my one, this is Jess's one, I've actually done sauteed onions in a large quantity. And the reason for that is if I'm wanting to make double the mixture, I'm going to just do this step once rather than redoing the step a second time. So if I want to double something or utilize it for another recipe at the same time while I've got my slow cooker on, I like to double especially that step because we always use sauteed onion and garlic in a lot of other recipes. So why not give yourself back time in another recipe like for the next day, etc. And so we've got obviously the sauteed leek on there, which I'm doing for this one. I've also put in mine, Jess, which you haven't got on yours, is slow cooked chickpeas. So it's really cost effective and affordable to actually cook your own legumes. And I'm a person who likes, I've got a bulk co-op kind of thing. So I like to buy them in bulk and make them there. So that is the function for that. Wow, you're on it, Jess. You've done it there. So if I was to manually cook this recipe now, I would go straight in and do my sauteing of my onion and garlic, or I would do brown my meat first if I wanted to brown my meat. Now, the recipe that I'm actually getting off, it does ask me to brown the meat because sometimes they want you to add those additional flavour enhancers. So when you're slow cooking, if you're wanting to get more depth into your slow cook, some tips are that you basically brown the meat first rather than do the dump, which maybe Bec will go into, or you dry roast your spices in the bowl. And I think this is another benefit why doing it in the Thermomix is we're keeping all the flavours in the bowl. We're not losing a lot of that, or we're not transferring it to another in between. We can, utilise and, skip the process of having to wash in between bowls too. Now, with this one, because like I said, I've actually found a recipe quite similar. I'm thinking, fantastic, I'm just going to make my recipe using this function. So I'm going to just start cooking. And now I love this. It's reminding me to get out my blade cover. Now, I haven't got the stainless steel one, but I do have the original blade cover. And I've got the, for the high temp, you'll need the splash guard. Almost lost what it was called. So I'm putting in the oil. And then it says to put onions. I'm actually putting leek. And remember, you can, even with the high temperature, you don't necessarily, especially for when you're doing onions, you don't necessarily need onions. You just need to ensure that you've got the right weight in the bowl or under, but not over it, because it will censor. So I'm doing, now I don't have carrots in my dish, but I've got some chopped up sweet potato and I'm putting that in as well. And like I said, I'm not even too fussed about that. So that's now sauteing. So if you want to go over, Jess, to Bec,
sure,
yourself while that's going.
Yeah.
I'll get myself.
Thank you so much, Deb.
Can you mute me? I'm trying to find the mute.
I can mute you in a moment. So we'll go over to Bec. Thank you, Deb, for that start off for us. And let's hear from Bec and her tips.
Hi, so I'm Bec. I'm from the Barossa as well. Apparently people in the Barossa like to slow cook. So that's quite funny. So what I'm going to talk about is dump bags. And I did look up if there was a better term, and there's not. It's like freezer bags, but the idea is you have a bag, you load everything that you want for your slow cook, and then you're able to just dump the bag straight into the slow cooker. So there's different ways that you can do it. The recipe that I'm going to show you tonight is the marinade for something that I'll cook tomorrow. So the idea is I make the marinade tonight and I get everything ready tonight. And then all I'm going to do tomorrow is pop most of the stuff in. And then there's other steps to do right at the end that are really quick. So what I'm going to do is show you the recipe, and then I'll kind of walk through the different stuff. I'll start by saying that to find recipes to slow cook, if you don't know what you want to cook, if you want some inspiration, you can go onto Cookie-Doo, and if you pop slow cook into the search engine, it will bring up some recipes. You'll get better results if you take Australia off as your filter, and then you go down further, you've got the option to change it to English only. If you can use Google Translate, there's even more recipes in different languages, but there are quite a lot to choose from in Australia. There's some really cool meat options, and there's some really cool vegetarian options as well, which is kind of cool. So I'm going to show you slow cooked lamb curry, and then towards the, we're not going to do it today, but at the end, this is served with a cucumber mint couscous, which is kind of different. So I'll show you how to get this one going. So as Deb said, it's really cool. It'll actually tell you to make sure that you've got a blade cover. So recipes that require a blade cover won't let you keep going if you don't have a blade cover. And for the TM6 recipes, you need to have the little searing cover as well for this one. So this one's going to ask for olive oil. It's the first one. So we pop that in. And then we add our garlic cloves. Whenever it asks for the 2 to 3, I usually do 4 because we really like garlic. And this time of year, the more garlic, the better. And chop that up. Apparently, we're not chopping that up. We're just moving that around. So while that does that, so what Deb was talking about before is when you're getting things like this ready, so for a dump bag or so it's prepping ahead, you can actually double the recipes by being a little bit clever with the way that you do it. So this recipe here is going to ask me to add some onion and then do a high heat sear. So in that way, it's only going to let me add my 200 grams of onion and no more. So what you can do to get around that is you can double this part of the recipe and then exit out of the recipe, go into, say, a caramelized onion, which we showed you in the different slow cook kind of components. So you can follow the caramelized onion and do 400 grams of onion, which is exactly double. And then you can stop, go back into the recipe and continue with doubling all the rest of the marinating ingredients. And then what you can do is you've got one that you can use the next day and one to freeze, or, you know, you can freeze both as components. With this one, if you're not planning to cook it the next day, you might have like a prep day. I always encourage, so I'm a nutritionist as my background. I encourage clients to prep, say, on one of their less busy days of the week. So if they have a day off from work, I suggest that it's a great day to cut up snacks. And if you're going to bake, do some baking and prep some slow cooker meals for the week. I've got 3 kids and they all do different, and I've got to ask Dad. So I've got 3 kids and they do different sports throughout the week. So to avoid having fast food most of the week, we tend to make slow cooker meals, or we have meals that we kind of have in sections. The slow cooker meals on Cookie Do go from between an hour and 6 hours. So this one is a 6-hour cook. So you can get different sorts of cooks depending on your needs. Basically just go in the recipe and have a look at the different requirements for the recipes. Pretty much to store the sort of dump bags that we have, you have different options. You can store them in components in little freezer bags, like sandwich bags, but you can buy larger food safe bags from different places, so you can put more items in there. Generally, meat and vegetables store better in the freezer if they're covered in a marinade. So if you can do the sauce and pop it in the bag with everything else, it will stop it more likely from getting freezer burn. So that's a good idea. Probably the biggest thing we'd talk about with that is, depending on the recipe, if you've got a recipe that's got potato or sweet potato, you're better off not to pre-cut potato and store it with the rest. That's the sort of thing, if you want it done the night before, you really need to cut it up and store it in water in the fridge instead of throwing it in a dump bag. You can do it, but generally the potato breaks up a lot in the dish, and you're not going to get those nice chunks of potato that you would have got otherwise. So we're just going to add in our 200 grams of onions for this one. And get our little splash guard ready. And that one has a sizzle. That will do the high heat and saute our onion and our garlic. What Deb was saying before about browning our meat before we go, there's like 2 trains of thought when you're going to be throwing it in the freezer. This recipe doesn't ask you to brown the meat before you go. So you have the option that you could go back into one of the settings that Jess and Deb were talking about before. And you can brown your meat and then marinate it and then pop it in the fridge. And then that will develop a better flavor in your slow cook. If you're going to be freezing it, it's not going to make a huge amount of difference. It's kind of you kind of lose that kind of caramelizing effect once you freeze it and then throw it in the bag. So it's completely up to you whether you do it. It can be good, and then sometimes you don't get as bigger effect as if you're just going to throw it kind of straight in the slow cooker. So it's completely up to you whether you do it. What else do we have? So you can store your bags for up to 3 months in the freezer. You probably shouldn't have them in there any longer. Trying to think if there's anything else. So when you go to use your dump bags, you should never get them out of the freezer in the morning and put them straight in the slow cooker or in the Thermomix, whatever you're using. The reason being is if you throw your frozen food into the slow cooker or into the Thermomix frozen, so the Thermomix recipes are based on thawed items to start with, so it's going to throw out the time. The other problem is that different foods come to different temperatures at different times, and the frozen items might be in the sort of food bacteria danger zone for longer than you want them to be. So your food might actually start to grow bacteria as it thaws out in the slow cooker. So you're better off to throw the freezer bag into the fridge, let it defrost. You should also leave so things like your greens, so green beans, peas, broccoli, things like that, put them in a separate bag. So you can have them together, maybe have bag one of one or two, bag two of two. And then the second bag, throw it in the fridge, defrost your greens and your veggies as well. And then throw them in towards the end of the cooking. So at the same time you would normally put in like a cream or something so it doesn't curdle. And things like celery, carrot, all those sort of like harder root vegetables that aren't potato and sweet potato, you can pop in with the meat. So if you want to add, so in this sort of recipe, you could probably hide some extra celery. You could hide some carrot underneath the sauce. So you'd be able to pop that in at the same time as the marinade if you're going to pop it in the freezer. For me, I prep it because we're doing this one tomorrow. This one's a 6-hour cook, so it's a really nice sort of Sunday recipe, or in our case, school holiday Friday. So you can pop that in and forget it. I think that's about it. So we pretty much just got to wait for it to sizzle. Did you want to talk about anything, Jess, while we're ready?
Awesome. Thank you. That's really inspiring there, Bec. Was that, Deb, were you ready for us to jump back to you?
I'm not just yet, but in case anyone hasn't got a TM6 and they haven't heard the sizzle, I don't know if you can hear it. Yeah, on mine too. I've got it going. The sizzle.
Sometimes Zoom doesn't let us hear it.
That's a big pain. Maybe
it sounds
better.
Yeah, we can't hear the sizzle. We'll have to think over Facebook. You can hear the sizzle, and of course in real life as well.
Anyway.
Now, did you want me to jump in for a few minutes?
Jump in. Yep.
Alrighty. What I might do is share my cookie dough again, because I've got a few recipes on here, and we're going to be sending you some of our favourites as well via email because you've registered. But what I've been doing today and recently, but mostly today, to be honest, was playing around with some of the vegetarian things and also vegetarianizing a couple of the recipes. So I'd love to share with you what's my findings. And I also wanted to share you, before we dive into the vegetarian things, I would love to share with you one of my recommendations. Is the beef cheek bourguignon, if you're looking for a nice slow cook dish. And you can obviously use a different cut of meat. I've never bought beef cheeks. I've gone in to the butcher and asked for slow cooker beef. I just called it that, and they got it for me. and I got 800 grams for this particular recipe. So if you're wanting to try something that's already in cookie dough for you, this one is probably my recommendation based on what I've done in the past, and it's a 5-hour slow cook. It does incorporate the high heat as well. But let's go on to vegetarian, because that's what I promised. And what I'm going to show you today is this slow cooked chickpea stew. We're going to adapt that one. You can see the ratings aren't that high, but the thing is you can add your own flavors so that you can create it to your liking. And this one is a 4-hour cook. And as you can see, it's just chopping and then slow cook. So this is if you're wanting to not do very much before you might leave for school, for work, or you might go out for the day or a few hours, and you don't really want to be fussing about with lots of different high heat and creating lots of different flavors. You can just chop and dump and go. So I'm going to do that one in a moment, but I want to share with you some other findings that I've had today. Is this one here, Silverbeet Dahl. I've done this one before, and it's, as you can see, 4.5 star rating, so nice and popular there. This one's using yellow split peas as the protein, but as you can see, this is an 8-hour cook, so that's really good for those of you that are wanting to put it on before work and setting it going all day. You've got an 8-hour cook there, and that's slow cook at 95 degrees there.
Can I just suggest something even more smart savvy?
Yeah.
As far as time management, everyone loves their Thermomix. They don't want to tie up during the day, their Thermomix. So I think when you're wanting to do those slow cooker meals, if you do them before you go to bed,
yeah,
right? If you're a bit of a late hour, you're not like an early one, or someone in the house can actually transfer. But I personally would be doing an 8-hour cook at night. So then
overnight,
I'm getting up in the morning, I'm putting it away for later just to reheat. And I've got my Thermomix for the whole day to use.
Oh, perfect. I love the tip. That's a great idea. And I was considering doing that one tonight, and I thought, I'll do the shorter one. So I'm going to be up at midnight, I think, with the chickpea one that I'm going to do. No, that's a great tip for the long 8-hour ones. And like you say, then you can use your Thermomix for something else. Let me see. And we'll jump back over to you, Bec, because I think I heard yours go off. Let me know if that's true.
It was mine.
It was yours? Okay. Let me know if you want to show the next thing.
Yes.
All right, I'll come back when the other thermies aren't cooking, and I'll tell you about my Irish lamb stew that I made into a vegetarian version today. And this one is, I did it for 6 hours. I wanted to test again a long one for being able to set and forget. So I cooked a vegetarian version for 6 hours, and I'll show you the outcome to this one and tell you a few tips there. But we will jump back over to the other thermie that's about to do the next step.
Okay. So I've just done the leeks and that, and you can see we're getting some really good caramelization. You'll see it at the bowl. A tip also is if you actually stir it anti-clockwise, I always find the browning really lifts up at that time more than stirring clockwise. I find that it really gets it off so it doesn't keep on browning on the bottom. That's just my tip. This recipe, now on my little slow cook cheat sheet I've done for everyone, what you'll find is you have to put for the Thermomix at least 500 mils of some liquid in the bowl, especially if you're doing the lengthy slow cooks. Now, it might make it a little bit liquidy. Now, there's a few suggestions, and the first suggestion is, which is what I'm going to do now, I'm going to just pop on my scales because it's not in the recipe. Hold on. Scales. Okay, you put 10 grams of flour in at the cooking stage. So not while you got the liquid in there. We're going to be putting it in like a saute, like do like a roux. Is it called a roux, or I forget the French term when you put it in at the beginning of a cook. So that is one option. If you have forgotten to do that, don't worry, because at the end of the cook, you could cook for a little bit more. You can add a corn flour or arrowroot with a bit of water and have that at the end. Or alternatively, if you really want to intensify the flavours, you don't have to add any flour or any corn flour. You literally would strain your ingredients once it's cooked and leave the liquid and put your steamer basket on and give it another cook for 20 minutes on high heat. And then you're going to give it like a reduction. So you're going to intensify the flavours. And I guess it will help it. And always, Jess, when we were saying about doing it the night before, the benefits of actually cooking it the night before your slow cook is slow cooks always taste better the next day. They enhance in flavour. So, but I will suggest if you've got a person with allergies, especially sinus issues, or known for having histamine issues, I would be doing the slower cook options, not 6 to 8. I'd be doing the shorter slow cook options because of the amines, etc., in the meat. So I'm going back now that I've added that. Now, I'm adding some additional things to this recipe because it's not on the recipe. So it asked for tomato paste, this recipe. I've run out of tomato paste, so I'm just using some passata. So I'm going to put that in. It's supposed to have 50. I think I'm just under, so that's all right. And then, oh, hang on, I'm going to back. I'm not even transferring. I'm just going to add the white wine to it that I have to, and scrape around, make sure the flour incorporates.
Deb, which recipe are you using as a base? I'll just pop that into the chat box.
The creamy turkey one. I know it's not turkey, and it's it will eventually have a creamy consistency, but it's slightly a bit different. So I've not bothered taking out the veggies at this point. I'm actually just mixing it all together, giving it a bit more complexity along the cook. And then what I'm going to do when this is done is I then transfer it into my thermoserver temporarily, and we then put in our blade cover, and then I put my chicken, and then I put back the vegetables that are cooking in here. And what I've done is for my stock, today I ran out of chicken stock paste and I needed to make some. So I've made that, put that away. But what I did is I filled up the Thermomix bowl with water and gave it a good whiz to get all the leftover stock paste that was left in your bowl. So anyone making their own stock paste, are they remembering to fill the bowl up with water and to get every ounce of that goodness, that chicken stock for later? If not, there's a tip so you don't waste any. So I'll be using that as my liquid in the cook. Yeah, and we'll add I've got some potatoes here that I've already pre-chopped, and I put the mushrooms at the end of the cook. So if you go over to Jess now, I'm happy for you to go over to you. Wait, it's just about done. I'm going to give it a second. So yeah.
Yep. You're going to add something. Okay, we will let us know when you want us to come back. But I think Bec has the next step to show us too.
Yeah. Mine's pretty easy. I've just added some ginger, which I grated before the recipe. This was one of the only ones that's actually asked for grated ginger. So sometimes you need to have a look at the recipe and make sure that you don't have to do a step ahead. But this is where having a second bowl is really handy if you forget to pre-grate the ginger, because now you don't have the option. You've got these nice big chunks of onion, and they don't want you to grate them up. So you've got to make sure you put some grated garlic in there and some chopped chili. And I was a little bit mean and probably put some extra chili in there. My kids are not going to like me tomorrow. And what I've done is, if you're doing this for the next day, say you wanted to do this step and then start the recipe before you go out for the day, you can just mix all of your spices together. You can even freeze these with the rest of the recipe if you're not making up the marinade and doing it all ahead of time. You can just pop them in a little Ziploc bag and then staple them to the rest of it and throw it in the freezer with the rest of the stuff. I probably also didn't say, if you put your stuff into bags, so the food safe bags, and you're able to lay them as flat as possible, they're going to defrost a lot faster. I try to use containers wherever possible, but if things are in those kind of flat bags, they're really good. If you're going to be going camping or something, you can also take your Thermomix and your compact bags with you and then just throw them into the Thermomix while you're out. I've seen a lot of people on the kind of travel blogs and some of the other things that say that they take the sauces pre-prepared with them in the little food safe bags and lay them as flat as possible so they're quick to defrost. And then they just go into the Thermomix for a fast, kind of more prepared meals. It saves you having to take all your spices and, all those different things camping with you, if you want to. And I think the only other thing I didn't say is you can actually find a recipe for blanching your some of those green vegetables. So if you have fresh broccoli, fresh green beans, things like that, to save them from getting freezer burn, you're better to blanch them before you pop them in the freezer. Obviously, if you've already bought them frozen, you don't have to worry. You shouldn't defrost them and then put them back in the freezer. You can, but it keeps changing the consistency and you'll wind up with a lot mushier vegetables. So to blanch them yourself, there is a recipe on Recipe Community. And you basically put them in the varoma for 7 minutes, speed 2 with 500 mils of water. And you can blanch your own vegetables and then freeze them. And that's pretty much me for another 2 minutes.
Awesome. Oh, thanks for all those tips. That's great. So right now, just to recap for any of those that might have got a bit confused because we're jumping around kitchens a bit, you are creating the marinade right now, the sauce. Is that correct?
Yeah. So this, once this is finished, we've got a few more ingredients to pop in. So this one's kind of cool. It does it in little stages. So it sautés and then uses a high heat function, and then it's sautéing it again now with the spices to add more of a depth of flavour. And then what we do is I've got some pre-prepared lamb already cut up in chunks, and you've got to remember to make sure the chunks are quite large. You don't want little chunks because they break up and cook a lot faster than you want them to. So you've got to allow this to cool down. Mix it in with your lamb. And in my family, we're going to cook this for dinner tomorrow. So I'm going to work out what time we want to eat, and I'll put this on during the day and set and forget it. If we didn't want to and I was doing a prep, I'd be putting these into bags, putting them into the freezer, and then I usually work out a meal plan of what, the busy nights. So we're at dance Wednesday nights, and I've just found out we're not going to be home until about 7 o'clock. So that's the perfect night. I'm home during the day. I'll pop this on with enough time that it's ready to go when we get home so that we can just make the couscous and then off we go. So we don't
awesome. Oh, fabulous. Thanks for explaining how that's going to work. That's really useful. Thank you. Let me see, and we'll jump over to you, Deb, if you would like to show us what's going into your journey.
Absolutely chockers now. So I've taken out the veggies, and then I put the blade cover, put the chicken. I put some Dijon mustard as well in there. I've put the stock and the potatoes, and now we just basically let it go for 3 hours. So this is a 3-hour cook. So this is really handy when you've forgotten to actually defrost, because a lot of people who do slow cooking, it's all about getting your meat out early and then cooking it, you know, from the beginning of the morning. Now, if you're one of these type of people like me and you've absolutely forgotten, but you've bought some protein, some fresh protein, you don't have to worry with this one about waiting 6 to 8 hours to getting a real good casserole on the table. It's a 3-hour cook for that. If you were doing it with bone in it, it would be about a 4 to 6 hour cook in there as well. And you would probably put less veggies. You'd probably steam them later on and add to bulk up if you're wanting to get more protein into your Thermomix. So that's me done. I'm just ready to turn the dial, and then you can go, Jess. Oh, I forgot to say I added tarragon.
Tarragon, no worries. We can't wait to see your adapted recipe. You might share your adaptations with us, and we'll email everybody. And I don't think we've mentioned yet in tonight's class, however, with the slow cook function on the TM6, the first half an hour, I think it's 20 minutes, half an hour, it will stir for you. And then after that, for the rest of the period, the blades can actually stop. And then they stir every now and then. So that's how it works. So the first 20 minutes it will be stirring continuously, and after that it's a smart little function and looks after your food for you. Now I'd love to show you the outcome of what I've been cooking today, and I will also put on a dish as well. So what I might do is start with putting the dish on. So I've popped, like I showed you on Cookie Doo just before when I shared the screen, I've got all of the dishes in my Thermomix for today. I'm going to just tap on the slow cook chickpea one. I'm going to give that one a whirl and hit start cooking. And then it's just asking for the onions quartered. So I had a few little onions, and the Thermomix is going to chop these up. If you were going to do high heat in your TM6, you do need to hand slice your onions if it's a high heat, so the 160 degrees, because if you chop them in the Thermomix and then try and do high heat, it'll have a little bit too much liquid, and the high heat won't like that. So if you're using a guided recipe, it will guide you through that. It'll tell you how to put the onions in. This particular recipe is not going to use high heat. So we're just going to chop the onions in the Thermomix, which is what I love doing. However, I could jump out and select a sauteed onion recipe and do some high heat on there if I wanted to. So there's always the possibility of changing, as we've been talking about tonight a lot. Now, I'm going to pop 2 big cloves of garlic, and if you're going to do, these are really big ones, if you're going to do any more than about 2, or even if you are doing just 2, how about getting your Thermomix to peel your garlic? So I did that earlier today because I put 4 cloves of garlic in my other dish, and I thought I'm just going to get Thermi to do it. So I whacked them in before I put the onions in, and I did about speed 4, reverse for about 5 seconds, checked it, could have been a bit longer, and it flicked off the skins for me. I did chop the little end, the hard bit off, to be honest, and then just chuck them in. And yeah, I was really happy with the outcome. So if you're ever going to be doing something with lots of garlic, may as well get Thermo to peel that for you as well before you start. So I'm just going to chop that up. Thermomix loves chopping. So if you're wanting to do a real quick version of slow cook and not bother with the cooking the onions, then this is the recipe for you. If you're wanting to add that bit of extra flavour, then of course jump out and cook them. So that's, as you can see, saved me heaps of time from chopping all those onions. And next thing is the chickpeas. I actually did cook, I soaked these, I think I did it last week, soaking them, and then cooked them in the Thermomix with the slow cook chickpeas. So And then I'm just going to weigh that straight in. It's about 2 tins worth equivalent that you would soak and drain. Now I'm asking for some potatoes and leave them quite large, and I'll tell you why in a moment, because I'll show you what happened to my potatoes earlier today. So I'm going to leave this one large. I actually did peel them in the Thermomix earlier as well, which was fun, using the blade cover, which I haven't used heaps as a peeler, to be honest. So I'm going to pop those in. We need 300 grams. I ran out of potatoes, so I'm going to use sweet potato. And again, I'm cutting it really big. It says 3 to 4 centimetres, so quite large ones. And we just need a tin of tomatoes. So whack that in as well. There we go. And a little bit of smoked paprika. I don't like smoked paprika. I don't like the barbecue-y type flavour. So I'm just going to put sweet paprika in instead. There we go. A little bit of salt. And you could use your veggie stock paste if you wanted to as well. There's no reason why not. And that's all. I am going to scrape down my onion a little bit, grab my spatula, and this is what it's looking like so far. I'm just going to scrape down the onion a little. There we go. And I'm going to set that going. And as we've mentioned tonight, you need that acidic thing in there, and in this recipe, it's the tomatoes. So I'm just going to turn that on, and we've got 4 hours, 95 degrees, and it's on the slow cook function. So I literally just turn the dial, and that's turned on. So for me, that's awesome. That's pretty quick and easy dish. So you could add some salt and pepper, some other spices. You can put whole spices in because they'll be released slowly in your slow cook dish. And I'll let that go, and I'm going to show you the outcome of the other 2 dishes that I was experimenting with. So the first one is I will just share the screen to show you the recipe. The first one, there's Deb's recipe, by the way. Look at that, 4.1 stars. I'm going to click on my week. So the first one I'll show you is based on the Irish lamb stew. And now, as you can see, there's meat, there's carrots, potato, and some of that barley. And I pretty much, so what I did, I went and got lots of rosemary and thyme from the garden and my garlic, chopped that up, and then I used the high heat function. But I omitted bacon. I just put onion. I had no celery. So I just put oil and onion in there and did the high heat. It smelled amazing with those fresh herbs and everything. So creating a flavour first. And then we're going to we added water. Let's see. Yeah, I actually increased the water from 200. I put it up to about 400. Because I didn't have the meat, and there would have been probably a lot of liquid in the meat. So I doubled the water, and instead of lamb, so it was 900 grams of lamb, I put about 800 grams of vegetables, and that was carrots and potatoes. This recipe does call for it later on, so I didn't add them later on. I just used what I had. I wanted to test it out with broccoli as well. So I put some broccoli in all at once because I'm like, I want to test this out to see if I can just put it all in, go away and come back to a meal. So I thought I'm not going to do it in stages. I wanted to see what would happen if I put it all in at once. And bay leaves, stock paste and my veggies, and then I turned it on. And what I did was I also added the barley pearls at the same time. And of course the meat wasn't there, it was carrots and potatoes. I changed it from 5 hours up to 6 hours. I just wanted to push it a bit. I wanted to see what would happen. So let's have a look what happened. I will show you what happened. So we've eaten some of the food. This is, I'll get a spoon so we can show you a bit more. This is what eventuated. So we've got the carrots, they survived. A couple of the things didn't survive, and I'll go through that. So the carrot survived just fine. I cut them really big. Lovely. I love slow cooked type, stewy type carrot. That's what I was looking for, big bits of carrot. There's a few leaves from the broccoli that survived quite well. The potato didn't survive, and it's probably because it was just so long, the 6 hours. But I saw other slow cook recipes when I was doing my research, and potato went in. So I thought, anyway, so the potato didn't survive, and instead it's made it quite thick. It's quite thick. And so luckily I did increase the water when I changed this meat dish into a veggie dish.
True Irish stew.
Hey?
True Irish stew, nice and thick.
Yeah, it's definitely very thick. Yeah, and it was delicious. So the carrot survived. There is lots of different textures in there, but the big potatoes sadly disappeared.
Okay, Jess.
Yes.
With that, it does actually. That was one of the tips actually on the cheat sheet. That
Yes.
any greens such as spinach, broccoli, and kale, you really want to just add to the end. And you know what?
Yeah.
If you had actually chopped it up and probably just left it with the lid on, the heat itself would have softened those enough without you having to do extra cooking.
Yeah.
Or like if you're serving it with rice or something else, you could be using your varoma then and doing your veggies, those greens and those like zucchini and other ones that you're wanting to keep less and add it later.
Yeah, great tip. Thank you. I was really keen just to see what would happen if I chucked everything in. So I was acutely aware that they should be added right at the end, but that's all right. That's how I roll, is easy, quick and easy. And if I'm going to do slow cook, it's still going to be quick and easy. Now, the second dish I want to show you is, let me see. So not the Irish stew. It was this one. I decided I want to try an 8-hour dish. Again, this is just 3 stars, which I normally don't go for the 3-star ones. But anyway, this was an 8-hour, and it was just chuck everything in and turn it on. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to give that one a go, and I'm going to vegetarianize it. So I did a bit of research, and I've used jackfruit instead of pork. So I'll show you what happened. I basically did exactly the same. So I marinated the jackfruit, not for an hour, of course, because it's me. Did it for about 20 minutes. Covered it with paprika, garlic powder, salt and pepper, and just sat it in a bowl for 20 minutes. And then I continued on with the recipe, which, as you can see, is just pop in your onions, and different sauces. I didn't have barbecue sauce, so I did use a bit of tomato ketchup and a bit of water as well. So I did adapt it a little bit. I just used some juice that I had, and I just used veggie stock with water instead of the beef broth. But whatever you've got will be fine. And there's your vinegar there, the 25 grams of apple cider vinegar. So I'll just show you, that's the recipe that I worked with. And the tins look like this of jackfruit. For those that aren't vegetarian, you might not have heard of jackfruit, but it's basically, it's like a squash. And in South Australia, it comes in a can. I'm sure it would come fresh up in Queensland and tropical areas. But jackfruit is a great vegetarian option and vegan option, and a lot of people will use it instead of pulled pork. It gives you a quite a similar texture. So I used 3 tins of this, and that got me enough pork. and I whacked it all in, and it's finished cooking during our class, so I haven't poured it out yet. And what I'll do is I might grab a fork to show you what it looks like. So, and we'll have a look at the tips in a minute as well. But basically, like what Deb was mentioning, you could strain the recipe to get the juice and the contents separated. This is basically the pulled pork. I did have a taste and it's actually really delicious, but you would want to use a fork or a slotted spoon or something and get your pulled pork out. And the remaining liquid you could use, or you could actually just keep it like that. I'd probably add some veggies and chickpeas next time and make it a big lovely stew.
Yes, how much liquid was in that?
A fair bit, a lot.
Okay, because the jackfruit would have been quite watery itself. Yeah,
exactly. So you could definitely play around with it. And what I wanted to show you is down in the tips, we've got some really good information. So always look at your tips and tricks of your recipes, because this one says you could. So in the last step, it does say remove cooked pork, or in this case, the jackfruit, using tongs and pull apart with 2 forks. And that's how you get your pulled pork. And drizzle some of the cooking juices. And it says see tip. So that's what I was looking down here. And you could, if you wanted to, you could transfer some of the liquid and transform it, into a sauce, and you could then utilize that, so there's nothing going to waste. It says you can serve with tortillas and burger buns. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to put it in a tortilla wrap and see what happens. But I think I'm actually real keen to use it as a base for basically a soup. I don't really want the pulled pork from it, but I wanted to see what I could create, and I'm really happy with that one there. And I might pour it in. I'll pour it into the thermoserver so you can see. And this is the white thermoserver, which is another host reward. So if you invite a couple of people to watch some of our classes, like these online ones, you can qualify for host rewards. The moment you probably all know that the limited host reward is a second bowl. So please talk to your consultant if you need more info about that, because it's a really good opportunity to get yourself a second bowl set. Still time until the 12th of May. So be in touch with your consultant if you want to get your hands on a second bowl set at a discounted price, just for inviting a couple of people along. Or if one of them wants to start their own amazing Thermomix adventure, then you can get one of these at almost a quarter of the retail price. So you're going to be saving $265. So talk to your consultant more about that. We got another week or so to get your hands on one of those. And then it's back to the standard rewards, which are really awesome too. Let's jump back to, do we have anything else to show, ladies? We're running on time. We've got something to show over in Bec.
Yes. Oh, Bec.
Bec was showing something.
Yeah, so I've got the marinade ready. So it's nice, thick tomato base with lots of nice green colour in it. So it's got a nice colour. So normally I just leave things in the bowl to cool down, but they take a lot longer to cool in the bowl. So this one might be worth a dish to get it marinated, so kind of get it cooled down. As soon as it's cooled, because you don't want to start pre-cooking your meat, because again, you're getting into that bacteria danger zone before you're popping it in the fridge or popping it in the freezer. So you want this to cool down, and then you basically add it to your pre-cut nice chunky meat, and then seal it. And as I said, either pop it in a Ziploc bag and pop it in the freezer for up to 3 months, or I'm going to pop this in the fridge and it's going to come back out again kind of mid-morning tomorrow to become our dinner.
Awesome. That sounds so handy. Thank you. And Deb, did you have something else you'd like to show us before?
Well, while you were doing yours, all my family had the rice pudding and I had that here. And you know me, I love having the family give their take and critique on it. So, Matt.
How was it, Matt?
Yeah, well, yeah, I can't, but I was really impressed with that rice pudding. I mean, there's a little bit left. It was fantastic. Just like having all those elements, like the lemon curd and the rhubarb, and also the rice pudding.
What about the texture of the rice pudding?
Yeah, the texture. I was expecting like the rice, like you know how you get the grain of the rice, but you don't get that. It's almost smooth. Like it's very smooth, like a mousse. But I was just like thinking
a sago pudding.
No, it's better than sago pudding. But I was just like thinking, like, what an awesome opportunity. Like, if you can't use your kitchen oven for whatever reason, maybe getting kitchen renovations or something like that, you can still whack up a dessert. This is fantastic in your Thermomix, or if you're on the road or something like that, you can still.
But you can take leftovers tomorrow.
Oh yeah, well I'm looking at that. I'm not sure if there's going to be any leftovers, but anyway, but having that cold, you can have it. Oh, yeah. You can have it cold. I reckon Deb's going to be having some for breakfast tomorrow for sure, because it's. I mean, a rice pudding. It's essentially just like rice porridge, just a bit more glorified.
Yeah.
So, double thumbs up. Love it.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. And that's a real comfort food, isn't it? And especially great to be able to use our Thermomix to enhance the flavour. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you for sneaking in a dessert. We hadn't thought about dessert. I hope, was there anything else, Deb, before we tie up? Were you all good? You're muted.
Sorry. Just getting back to your dish, you know how you said you weren't too sure what to do with it, and you were talking about the base in a soup, because you know me, sustainability, zero waste. I thought of another thing. I personally think if you were going to make a chili con carne or something like Mexican, if you had froze or even refrigerated the liquid of that could be your liquid in that dish to give it that flavouring as well, because it's kind of a similar, you know.
Yeah, good idea.
Yeah.
Plenty.
But, I was going to say, at the end, always try and add your cheese or your cream or your dairy at the end of the cook. Like you might, if you're going to use milk, you might obviously for a couple of minutes more. But if you're adding cheese or cream, you just stir it through at the end, because you don't want it to curdle too, in regards to that as well. Or if and the benefit of that is in line with Bec. If you're cooking this to maybe put away for another meal at another time, you don't want to add those ones. And if you've already added them in the cook, you're not going to be able to freeze it.
Thank you very much for that tip. And I've just got a question in the chat box. For Caroline, which I can't wait to come and see you soon. It sounds like your Thermomix might have arrived. Now, Caroline is just brand new, and she's asking where is the reverse button on the Thermomix. So, Caroline, if you tap on your speed dial, in the middle of that, down the bottom, is a little picture of the blades. If you tap on that, you'll get reverse. But it will come up in reverse automatically when you're doing a guided recipe. Now, I look forward to seeing you in person. We'll come and make some veggie stock together so that you've got some stock paste to cook with. And you've come along to one of the more sort of technical advanced classes today with the slow cook. So well done. And I can't wait to see you and to see everyone at our future classes as well, because we do one each month. Next month, we've got booked in a daytime session during the week for those that have been asking for that time slot. And if you can't make that time slot, by all means, please register. You can get the recording. And the theme is breakfast solutions. So a lot of us have been finding that we're working from home, and sometimes you might not feel like eating in the morning that much. And a lot of people working home, a lot of people have gone back to work and whatnot. But we're going to get you some ideas on breakfasts and some real tasty things. And I reckon, Debs, I reckon your rice pudding could feature in that class too.
Now, Jess, just one thing I wanted to mention, for those that are on today or watching the replay, remember that you could be a host for this cooking event. And if you're deciding that this would really, now that you've watched it or watched the replay, benefit someone else, definitely let us know. I think, Jess, we should actually include a questionnaire in the recording as well, so that if they do decide to do it, if they return the questionnaire, then we'll be able to have them as qualifying for the host reward, especially if they're wanting that second bowl.
Beautiful point. That's right. And it's always lovely to share the love. And if you do think someone else could benefit from one of our classes, yeah, definitely let them know and let us know, and we can have a chat with them. All right, thank you so much everyone for having time with us tonight. I hope that you guys got some tips and a bit more insight into the slow cook. We will send you some of our favorite recipes for you to try, and include the ones that we've been adapting and using tonight, as well as Deb's great cheat sheet. So thank you, Deb, for creating that and getting your head around slow cooking and all that for us. Thank you everyone for joining live and for joining our recording. I'm going to stop that. We were the Flying Thermingos, and we still have room for 2 more flamingos to join our team. If that's something you might like to do, talk to your consultant, reach out to me, the team leader. I can give you a business info session anytime and explain what it might be like for you to join our team. We'd love to talk. Alrighty, let's stop the recording.